Host Donna Tornos, giving you, the injured, a voice in the sea of damaged lives by the VA's cornucopia of lies and deceit. We all know now that dioxin was present in the Canal Zone, and we intend to have our voices heard. Today's injured voice is Jon. Jon was in the Air Force at Howard Air Force Base in 1972 to 73. Welcome, Jon.
Glad to be here.
Well, Jon, I think you told me that you actually saw some of the chemicals that were stored in bunkers. Can you tell us about your time in Panama?
Yes, I was assigned there in April of 72, and I was there until November of 73. I was a law enforcement specialist who thought, oh, I'm going to be working in law enforcement, but I wasn't. I was assigned to all the security details as well because of my commanding officer. And one of the things I found working a flight line was they would load barrels with orange stripes and white stripes. They would load in the sprayers into the UH-1 Hueys, and they would spray the flight line. And I had one of the pilots tell me once that they were spraying over Gatun, and that's how I know it was being used. I watched it being loaded, and I watched them take off to spray it.
Wow.
And yeah, and the really sick part about it was that we would watch the jungle die back the next day. We would find all the animals, the snakes, rats, different things just dead that the weeds people would pick up and dispose of. And in addition to watching it being loaded, I discovered, I don't know, about 6 months after I got there, I was working what they called Security 2, and that was a bunker complex from World War II, where the bunkers were half underground. One of the bunkers that we routinely opened was full of barrels. The barrels were white striped, orange striped, and purple striped, and there were hundreds of them. I would have to say that this bunker was, the bunker I did see was probably 200 feet deep by 30 or 40 feet wide, and it was full, double stacks, as far back as I could see.
Now, Jon, when you said that the bunkers were full of these barrels, did you ever see people come to pick them up, like in trucks, to take them somewhere, or were they just being stored?
Yes. No, that's how I knew. Most of the bunkers remained closed because they were full of different kinds of ammunition. But that's how I knew it was in this bunker, because one shift I was working, we were required to walk the post. So one of the times I'm out there, it gets very boring. One of the times I was out there, they were actually unloading pallets of the barrels, and they were taking them out to the flight line. Because you can actually see the flight line from that particular vantage point.
Wow.
So they were taking them out. They were taking them out to the flight line. At another time, working around the UH-1Ns is when I watched them load up the choppers that were fitted out as sprayers. So it didn't take too long to figure out what they were doing.
And you had said that the pilot told you they were spraying over Gatun, and Gatun was our water source for the canal.
Yep. Yep. But it was also part of the survival school out there.
Sure.
Around Gatun Lake.
Right, the JOTC, the Jungle Operations Training. Right. My husband worked out there, and we lived on the Atlantic side over there. And so did the pilot say how much was in a barrel, or how much they used when they sprayed over Gatun area?
No idea.
No idea.
I know that they sprayed all of it, and I know that they loaded at least 2 barrels. So that would be 100 gallons, 50 gallons each, because they were pretty standard 50 gallon size drums.
Mm-hmm. Do you know if they were liquid or powder form in the barrels?
They were liquid.
Liquid. Ready to go.
Ready to go.
Okay.
Well, you could watch them. They used pumps. If they had been powder, they would have had to, you can't use a hand pump or a spinning pump, I'm sorry, an electrical pump to pump powder.
Right. So they would use
and of
electrical.
course it dripped out. Yeah, they would use what I would say is small electric pumps. You've got hand cranks where you can crank fuel in, or you've got electric pumps, and they're very small. They would fit it to the top of the can or the barrel, and then they would pump it into the tanks that were slung underneath the Huey.
Wow. So, okay. We did never think that they were spraying something harmful on us. So when we saw or heard the birds or whatever, we didn't think anything about it. Just thought they were picking up troops and going back and forth. And here they're dumping stuff on us.
Well, I can remember getting sprayed and having this oily residue feel and this taste in my mouth, metallic, coppery, metal taste.
Mm-hmm.
And I at the time, I had no idea what this all stood for. I thought it was, herbicides, which it was, but I thought it was, bug spray for the mosquitoes, because that's what they told everybody.
Right, right. Now, the weeds people that you had said came back the next day and picked up the dead animals, the rats and the snakes. Were they dressed a certain way, the weeds people? Did they have trucks? Did they look like they were a uniformed kind of a group?
No, they were Panamanian nationals.
Panamanian nationals.
Yeah.
But were they told?
They were dressed in straw hats, and they were not uniformed. They were not gloved. They had no safety gear at all.
Were they ordered to go pick those up, or did they just want to go get those animals to eat them or something?
Somebody would have to order it because the locations were secure. Okay. And before we could let them on, they had to have a pass to get into the area.
Okay.
Because there was Security 2 and Security 3, and they did it at both places.
Interesting. Huh. So did they sign in, or do you know if they signed in? Okay.
Yes, they did. They would sign in. Well, the time I was there, they had to sign in with me.
Huh.
We kept entry exit logs of everyone who entered the location and left.
Okay. Interesting. You think those are still out there somewhere, those logs?
I have no idea what the Panamanians have done with those bunkers. I know that Security 3 was the more advanced system where we had the missiles and more modern ordnance. Mm-hmm. I would have to say they had to have done something, because there were 15 per side, so there was 30 bunkers out there. It was a big U-shaped that you walked around in a kind of a U, half circle, a full circle eventually it would make.
And that was on the flight line at Howard?
No. There's an access road that if you drove south from the flight line or from the cop shop, would take you out down around the bottom of the runway. The first thing you would see would be Security 2, which had a very small gate shack on it. Those were the old World War II bunkers. If you continued up paralleling the flight line, you would get to Security 3, which was the much more modern bunker system that was always worked. Security 2 was pretty much left alone. It was rare for anyone to go in there. It was very old, World War II.
Mm-hmm. So they may have some old things stored there in those, I imagine.
The rumors were, and I'm going to say rumors, is that they had, artillery shells and old ammunition from World War II. You know how it is, they don't want to get rid of anything.
Sure, might be able to use it again or something. Just like they did when they moved everything from Johnston Island into the Canal Zone, all the usable stuff, probably, the Agent Oranges and greens and blues and whites and stuff, they they moved and stuffed anywhere they could find room in 1948.
Right. Anywhere they had, and that's why I thought recently that's why they were using those bunkers, because they probably had to dispose of some of the old stuff that had gone bad, rusted out, corroded, whatever, and that's why they put the barrels into the bunkers, because they were secure. They were guarded and they were secure.
But the one bunker you saw, they were actually using it for short-term storage. They'd come and pick it up and pump it into the Hueys and take off and spray.
Yep. Yes.
Interesting.
It was probably the 4th or 5th bunker from the guard check.
Right. Now, Jon, have you been, from your exposure while you were there in Panama, have you suffered with diseases?
Oh, yeah. Initially, while I was still in service in the Air Force, I was in for 4 years, 9 months. I almost made it a career. In '73, I was assigned to TAC headquarters at Langley Field. I was diagnosed by the infirmary there with chronic prostate issues, swollen pain, the whole 9 yards. And it never got better. They would treat me with antibiotics, and it would come back in 6 months or 3 months. They could never figure out what it was. Well, my ex-ed medical said the same thing, suffering from chronic prostatitis. Well, in 1983, they found that my prostate was never going to get any better and that I would never have kids because of that. It was affecting everything down there. Not to get too personal about it, but
sure.
They said it would constantly swollen, and I was on a course of antibiotics and corticosteroids for about 2 years. Much later on, things began to snowball. Then I started getting kidney infections. Then I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. That led to a thyroid deficiency. Thyroid doesn't work right. And, of course, hearing loss from not having the proper hearing aids. But worst of all is I am now a stage 3 emphysema. So they're telling me 2 to 5 years. So almost all of that I believe was caused by my exposure. One of the things that I haven't said to you yet is that the Operation Ranch Hand, some of the C-123s from Vietnam were assigned to Howard Air Force Base. There were 6 of them. And during my time there, we, security police, had to walk the flight line and in the rain and whatever. And so we were constantly around these 6 123s that had been used and to spray Agent Orange all over Vietnam. None of us knew anything about this, so I even was assigned as a ride-along security officer on 7 different missions that I can remember that I've got notes about, where we would fly search and rescue over the Gulf, and once over Managua after the earthquake down there. So I was exposed, as far as I'm concerned, not only because of the C-123s on the flight line, but because of the spraying that they were doing, weekly at least.
Right. So you actually
not to mention the DDT, not to mention the foggers that were going around every other day.
Right. Right, exactly. And we don't, well, in the 70s, when we were there, you and I, DDT was already banned in the United States, so I don't know why they were still using it, except that Nixon said it was okay, probably.
Yeah, sure he did. You know he did.
Yeah.
Said, well, let's not waste it. Let's not throw it away. Let's not burn it. Let's use it because they'll never know the difference.
Exactly. And we didn't. I mean, you were the same age I was, 17, 18. I think I was 18 when I went, no, maybe No, I think I was 21 when I went down to Panama, but same thing. We
Okay.
did not know, and when the foggers came around, I asked because it smelled horrible. What the heck is that?
It's a,
And they said, "Don't worry, it kills bugs, doesn't kill people."
yeah,
Hmm.
liars.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
they are.
Well, what's the joke now? It didn't kill me then, but it's killing me now.
Well, yes, and
As far as I'm concerned.
when I found, when I found the evidence, I just thought, that the VA was going to thank me and say, we didn't know. Thanks a lot, And when they hit it, I said, wow, we've got to get this out because this will help a lot of people because we're all suffering. And I met so many of you, so many veterans that have the same types of diseases that we suffer from. And there's got to be something to this. But I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing the story, Jon. Was there anything else you wanted to tell the audience?
I am permanent. I am permanently disabled. I'm not going to get any better. And I really hope we can do something about this because I do not want to be one of the vets that they just delay until I die.
Right, and that's what they try to do. And so many have died. Just recently, another one has died, and it just breaks my
Yes.
heart because we are only in our early 60s, and we shouldn't be this sick. And they have
No.
never studied the Panama vet to see, that there's so many thousands of us that are suffering. So we hope that together we are going to make a difference. And so thanks a lot, Jon, for coming on.